You're listening to Giles Brown on Talk Radio Europe, your voice in Spain. Riding Route 66, Finding Myself on America's Mother Road is the new book by Henry Cole. You may recognize the name. You'll definitely recognize the voice. The man himself is with us now. I say good morning, Henry.
Yeah, morning, Giles. Morning, Giles.
How are you? How's your day going?
I wish I was down with you, mate. Sorry. I wish I was in the sunshine. Right, I'm in old Blighty. Terrible.
Well, perfect motorbike riding weather. So, for those who don't, Route 66, it is obviously iconic, but I don't think a lot of people really know about what, where, how, and why.
All right. Well, look, Route 66, to me anyway, is probably I think it is one of the most iconic routes in the world. It was devised in 1926 as basically putting a whole load of ribbons of road together to make one alignment from Chicago to Los Angeles. Why? Well, because of the Great Depression, people were starving, there was drought, there was famine, there was industrial meltdown, there was every good reason to leave the east of America and as the saying goes, head west, young man, right?
Yeah.
And so to head west, Route 66 became the first migration of a motorised population, if you see what I mean. Yeah?
Yep.
Going to find, not fame so much, if the odd person did, but, fortune and basically a way out of their predicament by heading west, to California and before, actually, but the bottom line is everyone had to get out of or needed to get out of the east coast of America. So Route 66 runs for 2,800 miles from Chicago to Los Angeles. And ostensibly, it was a route which was born out of austerity, but at the same time has become iconic, mainly because how it developed, if you see what I mean.
Mm-hmm.
In the 20s and 30s, it was a route to hope, right? A route to not freedom, but freedom of the oppression that was going on the east side. In the 40s, strangely, was the only time when Route 66 was used the other way from the west going east, because it took the troops to Europe in World War II, right?
Yeah.
But then in the 50s, it became this beacon of hope and new life and new future with kind of sort of winged, cool, automobiles, etc. And, that was its heyday, the 50s and early 60s, where all the young kids, etc., would drive Route 66. And then in the 70s, the interstate came along. And so consequently, all the wonderful villages, towns, etc. along the way, basically some of them became ghost towns. But now, Giles, there's a massive resurgence in it, right?
Yeah.
So from the 80s, it's been kind of transformed, and it's also been restored to some of it to its former glory. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely. So, but perhaps one of the things is here, and I'm not going to get all deep and meaningless on you, but this is about the journey and not the destination, which the hope of the 50s and the new American deal and that whole thing about 2 cars in every garage and whatever, and pre-war, and maybe the interstate, which is all about getting to destinations quickly. That's the 70s blandness. You don't get the same sort of feeling, going round and round the M25, for example. But if you take the interstate to Los Angeles, it's just bland and boring. 66, as you say, takes you through the variety of the countryside, doesn't it? The changing terrain, and as you say, these stops, these villages, these towns, which are, when the interstate are raised, completely bypassed, and then become a metaphor for sort of the American dream going badly wrong in the 70s.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, the thing is that, Route 66, because it instigated that first automotive migration, the services sprang up to service that migration, right? So consequently, Route 66 is home still to the first petrol station, right? The first diners, the first motels, the first roadside advertising, yeah? Because all along Route 66, the travellers had to be looked after, do you know what I mean? So consequently, it basically instigated the society that we live in today. Yeah, because obviously it was based in the motor car. Yeah,
Yeah.
And so that's why, for someone like me who's really into that kind of American pop culture, or basically just general pop culture and its instigation, America played a massive part in that purely because of functionality. Do you know what I mean? That they had to service this migration. You know what I mean?
And obviously, one of the things is when you first go to the States on your first trip, people come back and say, it was just like being on a movie set. It was amazing.
Well, it was.
Yeah.
You're so right, Giles.
But with Route 66, that's that feeling on steroids because, get your kicks on Route 66. I mean, it just becomes that thing. And all those tropes that you go into, I don't know, you go to Ed's Easy Diner or whatever it is, Johnny Rockets on King's Road or Fulham Road, and you see all this sort of diner culture. And there it is. And it's the actual mother node, if you will.
Absolutely. I'll tell you, that is so true. But what's interesting about 66 is it is exactly how do you describe it? You do feel as though you're riding through a movie set. And actually, sometimes you are. There have been movies shot all the way along there. Bits of Easy Rider, etc., were shot along there. But what is amazing, I mean, I've ridden Route 66 3 times on a motorcycle and made TV shows about that. But the bottom line is you don't actually know if what's real and what's fake. Right? What's real and what's for the tourist. But actually, at the end of the day, you realise that element of kitschness in American culture is something to be embraced, whether it's original or whether it's fake. Do you see what I mean?
Yeah.
So consequently, you go into a town like Seligman or something like that, and you see all these wonderful old diners and, whatever, and you think, oh my God, is it real? Well, does it matter, really? Because it is part of the cultural, terrain that you're in. Do you see what I mean?
Yeah, because you are now being the hero of your own movie script. And you said Easy Rider. You said Easy Rider. You could have said The Wild Ones. You could have said, I don't know, Zabriskie Point if you really wanted to rock and roll. But what we're so Vanishing Point. What we're saying is that basically you immerse yourself almost in the role. Now, few quick things. Let's mechanics. What's it like? I mean, is it a double carriageway? Is it one strip of tarmac? I mean,
okay.
Yeah.
Hey, look, what's really interesting about 66, right, if you're planning to go on it, which I have to say, the first time I ever went on it changed my life.
Right.
But that's another story. Mainly because of being aware or understanding more our cultural legacy or how it all started. That's how it changed my life. And it also, the Harley Davidson changed my life, only because I thought that Harley Davidsons had agricultural gearboxes and were pretty rubbish. Then I realised that actually you change up into fifth gear coming out of Chicago, heading for Springfield. You don't change down till LA. You don't need a gearbox. So that's why they're so rubbish. Anyway, look, seriously, what's amazing about 66 is that running right across America, there are these alignments. Route 66 was the second alignment that went right with the railroad that crossed from east to west, west to east, across America, right?
Yeah.
So you're lying in bed in your little, motel, and you're woken up by this massive hooter on these trains, okay? Horns on these trains. So the bottom line is that Route 66 is never more than probably half a mile away from the railroad that crosses America. So then the interstate came in the 70s, and yes, you've guessed it, the interstate was only about a quarter of a mile from Route 66 right the way across. Yeah. So basically, you have the option. There's about 85% of Route 66 that is still rideable or drivable now, but you don't want to do that anyway. Right? So you can choose. You think, I'll do this great bit of historic Route 66 through Oatman and Kingman or whatever it may be in the desert, and then, no, I'm just going to get on the interstate now. Who the hell wants to go through Oklahoma with 450 stoplights? So look, I'll go round Oklahoma on the interstate, the ring road, and then I'll pick up 66 on the other side. So look, the opportunity to either hurry your trip or slow it right down town is infinite.
And also,
just because all the roads are there.
Yeah, I like to be having the fast forward button through the boring bits. Oh, this has been. I don't do that.
Yeah. No, that's
fast
exactly
forward.
That's exactly it, mate. That's exactly it.
And your weapon of choice, the agricultural Harley, it makes perfect sense.
Okay.
If you think of either Easy Rider, and they're all sitting there with Nicholson on the back with his football helmet, but you're like this. This works really well on radio, by the way. You're like that.
Hanger bars, imitating.
And you can't do that if you're trying to get from Guildford to Cobham or something like that, because it's all bends. You don't want to take a Fireblade, so you want something you can cruise in and not change.
Yeah, exactly. Look, I'll tell you what though. The flip side of it is I've got a couple of chops like that. Right,
yeah.
And I've tried the ring road or whatever around Guildford. Do you know what I mean? The bottom line is, if you are going to immerse yourself in the American dream, I really don't think riding a BMW would be the right thing to do, if you see what I mean. So if you are going to ride Route 66 because of all the reasons why you want to, which is basically boils down to your love of America, American motorcycles, American cars, American everything, then I really do suggest you ride an American motorcycle, just in my case, because I'm bikes, but, so Harley, Indian, etc. But, the bottom line is that you can hire a Harley and go and do it, right? Or you can buy one in Chicago, get it insured, and then sell it again in LA, yeah? Or, like me, I bought it in my first trip. I bought it in Chicago, promised myself that I would sell it in LA, and brought it home. Because you get an attachment to the beast. Of course you do. Of course you do, because you're both facing, imminent danger. Yes, together. Do you know what I mean? I say that it's quite difficult to get knocked off on Route 66 because there's very little traffic.
That's interesting, because I would have thought that it would have been one of those. Is it because maybe the Americans don't get their own pop culture to a certain extent, and they'd rather get to Disneyland quicker or something like that? And
you know what?
Yeah.
I think you're absolutely right, but I think actually they are waking up to the fact, and the austerity in 07, 08, etc. Weirdly, that instigated 66 came back to not haunt them, but came back to offer up another opportunity for Route 66 because people couldn't afford to travel, and still a lot of them can't. A lot of us can't. Route 66 has now become a bit of a mecca for indigenous, for Americans,
Is there that feeling of, because you don't want to go back and do ye old roadie 66 and everything is completely sort of revamped? Is there still sort of that faded faded glamour, those old signs? So it's not all a tourist, because I hate that everything is a tourist experience these days. No. Look,
there are certain pockets of tourism, that everything that is sort of they're dedicated to the tourists, yeah. But at the same time, when you're out in places like Shamrock, out in the, just really in the center of America, it is like a developing country, a lot of it. You will not believe until you ride it or drive it the poverty that is out there. Yeah, I mean, really, it's really bad. But on the flip side of that, the fascinating places that I want to go visit are stuff like the boneyards, where they've towed since the 20s, the vehicles off the roads into these boneyards and left them. And so for me, as a sort of, serial restorer, looking for that kind of stuff, old bikes, etc., in those kind of places.
Old pickups sitting there, rusting from the 50s. I can see it.
I've got it. I've got a
Studebaker, all that sort of stuff.
You know it. Yeah. So that is genuine, original Americana, and stuff that needs to be saved and restored,
Yeah.
And so, but also along the way, the way people live, and the houses and all that kind of stuff, just the different conurbations are original. Yeah, but then others are there purely for the tourist. Yeah, but that's the fun of it. You're riding past. There's a life-size blue whale. What's that about? Yeah, some geezer, right? I pulled into a cafe on one of my trips out there, and their thing is that they have the biggest rocking chair in the world. Right? It's the size of 3-story house, rocking chair. So that's 66.
Yeah.
The Cadillac Ranch is just a load of Cadillacs that have been stuck in the ground, pointing upwards like a row of dominoes. Yeah, I mean, how weird is that? What's that about? So again, kitschness, Americana. You got to see it to understand it, I think.
But in a world that's becoming incredibly bland, and we all do the same thing on our bleeding Instagram feeds and the whole bit, and everybody's got the same everybody's got a bleeding this, that, and the other. This is great. We should be celebrating the eccentric and the out there.
Yeah, I think also as well, mate, I mean, that's what the book's about as well.
Yeah.
Which is also about giving yourself the opportunity to be in touch with your surroundings and be in touch, sorry to get deep, but being in touch with self. By which I mean, for me, you're on a motorcycle, you could easily do it in a car. But for me, I'm on a motorcycle and I'm on my own for very, long stretches of periods of time. And so consequently, when you're actually, riding through history, relatively recent pop cultural history that does and has affected you and your life, it is a time to reflect. Yeah.
Yeah,
do you know what I mean?
I'm thinking here because there are touchstones here. So you'll be going down the thing and see something that will make you grin broadly at a memory, probably from the UK, about listening to Chuck Berry or whatever. And then there will be bits and pieces that actually might make you quite emotional because you think, hang on a second, this sparks something. Because the thing about memory and motion, and you don't have to go and lie on a bloody beach in Bali or go swarming in India because we're all different. And and I'm a petrol head. So for me, if ever I smell petrol, I'm back at Alton Park, in the paddock with my dad. Do you know what I mean? So for some people like us, this is the touchstone that can spark a whole bunch of psychologists have a field day, wouldn't they? With a whole bunch of repressed memories that make you find yourself.
Absolutely. And that I think is what Route 66. If you're embracing Route 66 in total, if you see what I mean, you are looking at yourself within that. I remember an old biker said to me that loneliness breeds solitude, solitude breeds serenity. Yeah. And I think you find that when you're riding, especially through the sort of latter part, the last third of it through the deserts, where actually the humility of being so small plays a big part. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And so consequently, your worries, everything that is intense in your small little house over here in Cleethorpes, or in my word, Oxford, right? You're really, but when you get out to the open plains of Texas and the deserts of Arizona, you realise that really you are a tiny pawn in this whole damn world. And so basically you've got to grow old disgracefully and enjoy yourself.
You mentioned Easy Rider. I can't help but say you're driving through the wilds or whatever. Did you ever hear the sound of banjos or anything like that disturbing, or were the natives were the natives friendly?
Hey, look, the Route 66 doesn't really touch the Deep South, but I'll tell you what, I've ridden through Alabama and the Deep South. You could not have met nicer people. Honestly, man, the Deliverance movie and all that kind of stuff, I'm sure there's bad people everywhere. Do you know what I mean? Even in my little village here near Oxford. But the bottom line is that, the American people, man, I'll tell you, you're embraced. I've done, I do a series called World's Greatest Motorcycle Rides. I've done 17 rides in America. Yeah. I've got to tell you, I've never met a bad one. Yeah. They may well say hello to me and then go and shoot someone in the afternoon. But, to me, they've always been helpful. And that's the thing that you need to understand if you're riding through America. People are really there to help. And the only fake smiles I've ever come across in America is in Vegas, where they want to shoot you and smile at you at the same time. Do you know what I mean? Yeah.
And I suppose I was going to say the hardest bits must be the last couple of kilometres, but at the same time, it's a there and back ride again, and you could go back and forth the rest of your days if you wanted to. So it's as Lamal, who obviously we're both huge fans of, famously said, it's the never-ending story.
It's a never-ending story. Kajagoogoo, there you go.
Yeah, that's when he went solo. But anyway, what are you hoping?
Was it? Was it?
Oh,
okay.
yeah. I mean, come on. As a biker, you forget the Hawkwind, you can forget sort of the Motorhead stuff. We've got to catch up with our early '80s solo projects.
Oh, we do.
We do.
Yeah,
indeed.
I mean, Nick Beggs, the bassist, he had a band called Ellis, Beggs and Howard, didn't he?
My cap is being doffed in your general direction. Right, before we go down that particular rabbit, what are you hoping that people are going to... By the way, because people know you, is it quite refreshing to get on a bike and get away from it all, especially in the States?
yes and no.
Yeah.
In the sense that, look, people come up to you in the street and all that kind of caper and all that kind of, but at the same time, I refuse, for instance, to go to, a film premiere or something like that. I live in a shed, all right? So people come up, we've got Shed and Buried on Discovery, we've got Junk and Disorderly on ITV and Blaze, we've got Find It, Fix It, Flog It, on Channel 4. The list goes on of the shows we do, yeah? But at the end of the day, I'm just a geezer in a shed who talks drivel. Yeah, and that's why I got a gig. And as far as I'm concerned, I'll tell you a little story. Actually, my friend Amanda, she used to present a show called Wipeout. Do you remember that with Richard Hammond?
Oh, blimey, yeah. Now we go back.
Yeah, do you remember? Yes. And they'd all jump on the red balls. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, look. You'd walk down the street with Man, right? And someone would come up and go, "Hello, Amanda. How are you?" And she'd go, "Oh, really well." She's really polite and all that kind of stuff. And then they go, "Have you ever jumped on the red balls?" And she goes, "No." And that's really where it ended. You see, for me, if someone comes up to me, they go, "Oh, Henry, how's the GSXR 1100 restoration?" I go, "Well, funny enough, we finished that, but I'm on to, so you're in, aren't you?" Do you know what I mean?
Yes.
So I love people coming up and chatting and all that kind of stuff, because also they might have stuff to sell. You never know.
Yes.
So when you're in America riding Route 66, very different ball game. You know what I mean? And I'm constantly humbled that someone's actually paying me to do that. Do you know what I mean?
But yeah, best because, all this and money too, as the saying goes.
Yeah, look, hey, it's wonderful that happens, and I'm incredibly privileged to do that. So, what I want to do for people is highlight the fact that Route 66 is a fascinating holiday. Yeah. So if you are a petrol head of any form and you embrace the American dream, yeah, or the legacy culturally of the American dream, then I think you've got to ride either the whole or part of Route 66 at some point. Do you know what I mean? Because I think it will fulfill you immensely.
I'm thinking, riding down the road in my Eldorado, etc. I'd do the full car thing, but if people want to find you online, you're right. I've seen the website, very attractive too. I think the website, but you're not too bad yourself, sweetie. How's the best place to find you online? henrycole.tv is a good start. Also, if you get onto Discovery's website and Blaze's website and Channel 4 and ITV's iPlayer, whatever you fancy. And I think in Europe we go out anyway on Discovery. Yeah.
henrycole.tv will tell you the way to go. Otherwise, there are plenty of broadcasters' websites that you should be able to find us anyway.
Absolutely.
Or Google us.
Indeed. Yeah. The book is called Riding Route 66. It's out on the 6th of June. You can order it as well, pre-order it via our own virtual bookstore. Go to TRE.radio. Nice picture of Henry on the bike. Click on that. It'll be winging its way to you from the 6th of June. Henry, it's been an absolute pleasure to be completely petrol-headed with you, mate.
Thank you, mate. Thank you, Giles. Been a pleasure on my end as well. So thanks so much. And you got to go Route 66 if you haven't done it before. All right.